Kansas State hate week, here we come. West Virginia University fresh off a win over Iowa State. You got your boys, the Raspy Voice Kids, me, Brandon Phoenix, known as I Also Hate Pitt, and my homeboy,
Jane Fiend. Yep, Jane Fiend. He was about to say it. I'm going to cut him off and say it myself. Jane Fiend in the building. We're ready to talk about Iowa State, the Cyclones.
How much difference a week makes.
Whew.
From doom and gloom, Dana's lost the team, everybody's leaving, nobody wants to play, nobody's tough, nobody has heart, Dana can't win big games, to 2 wins over top 25 teams in one season, bowl eligibility, and excellent toughness showing out of the Mountaineers for this past game. I was super excited about it myself. How did you feel?
No, I loved it, man. I watched our team, and I felt like the physical toughness. The way our line came out and they were ready to play. But Justin Crawford's where I saw the fire and the passion.
Me
Not
too.
only Justin Crawford, but I got to give Herd his boy Big Eli Wellman, man. That dude was killing people. Like I feel like nowadays the fullback has lost a lot. This dude is balling. Like if you watch all the plays, their power moves. My dude is leading the way for Justin Crawford. I loved it. I love the physicality. I love the determination. I love what I saw on Saturday. I really did.
I felt like there were so many key players for us. Elijah Wellman, key player. A lot of what he did doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but his toughness, like you said, his energy, his leadership, that 304 mentality, that showed up, and it paved the way. And the thing is, we ran for over 200 yards, I think it was 180 yards on 25 carries is what it was. So nearly 200 yards total. Everybody got in on the act. Justin Crawford is currently the 3rd leading rusher in the Big 12, which you wouldn't have known that if you talked to us last week. You'd have thought he was a bottom dweller. Yeah. And Greer got back on track with a 204 rating, 20 of 25 passing, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sills got himself another, even though really had a quiet game. Karan White went off, really should have had 2 touchdowns, but instead, because he stepped out of bounds, afraid somebody was going to catch him from behind, only ended up with the 1. But, I mean, you can't ask for more. The only thing you can ask for, that's not true. You can ask for more. We do ask for more. We're up 20-0 at halftime. Should have been 23-0 at halftime. And then we don't score again in the second half. The thing that is peculiar about that to me is we only had 1 turnover. And I think we only had 1 3-and-out the entire game. And we only scored 20 points. How is that possible?
No, I don't think that. Look, I purposely went back and watched the second half to see what happened. And I'm going to hit you with a few stats. Let me find them real quick. Actually, I don't know where it is. Oh, here we go. In the third quarter, they started out. They had the ball for 5 minutes.
Who had the ball? Who are you talking about?
Iowa State had the ball for 5 minutes. They drove down, scored, got in the end zone. We then had the ball for, I think, like 6 minutes. It wasn't until 2 minutes left in the third quarter that we had our second possession. 2 minutes left in the third quarter that we had our second possession of the second half. We only had, I think, 4 or 5 possessions in the entire second half. What this was, and I heard people saying something about Spav. If you watch, I thought he called great plays, especially
I thought so too.
When they cut down the lead and we had the ball. It was 20-16. He called a draw play and he called a screen pass. Great things. Now, granted, there wasn't a pass interference called on one of the drives. There's one time I didn't like the run calls that we didn't get first downs, but I thought he called a pretty good game. People looking like, oh, we only scored 20. Let's be mad at Spav. I disagree. What happened is exactly what we all knew what was going to happen. Iowa State, like we said before, possesses the crap out of the ball. And that's what happened. You can't score touchdowns. You can't score points when you don't have the ball. They had long drives. We had long drives. We had pretty much 5 possessions in the second half, 4 or 5, I think maybe 6. Either way, it was relatively few. I watched what happened. We drove the ball and like I said, lack of a pass interference and then stopped on 4th down. Like there were some things that happened, but I watched our offense and I felt like we called good plays. Spav called a good game. So people who are killing them, go rewatch the game. You were watching in the moment. Go rewatch the game. Watch what took place. This was classic Iowa State. This was classic Kansas State. Possess the ball, cut down possession times, cut down possessions. You can't score if you don't have the ball, and that's what happened in the second half. If you watch Dana, if you watch Gibby, if you watch Spath coming off the field, granted, a win is a win, but they were happy with their units because I felt like they played ball. And, and they were knocking people off the ball. I thought they played well.
I think winning is the most important thing. And I think I don't think that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Winning's not the most important thing. It's not the most important thing. It's the only thing, okay? We understand that concept. Winning cures all, just win, baby, all that stuff. But the other thing that you have to come out of this really excited about is the coaching staff saw an issue, called the team out, and the players responded. That means there's a respect in that locker room. There's a self-respect. There's a team respect. There's a respect for the coaches and for the people taking the lead. Respect for the seniors as well. I love that. And I feel like in a game that got as gritty as it did, we showed real character, real development. Again, I will say, this is another game this season that we see Dana Holgorsen and the Mountaineers would not have won in many years past.
Yep.
And we see a progression in the way that Dana coaches, in the way the team responds, and now we are winning these games. You can look at last year, 17-16 over Kansas State. That's not a game we would typically win. We did. This year, this is the third game that we obviously had a chance to lose in a close manner, I should say, and we pulled it out. I was really proud of the way the team played. I was really proud of the crowd as well. People want to People want to kill the students. I was there. The students show up late. I feel like that is not abnormal. That's what happens.
That's what happens.
And I feel like it's not unique. It's not unique to West Virginia. I think.
Did you see the Michigan State game?
Yes.
There was nobody in the stands. I know it was raining. I don't care. If that would have been Morganton, like there was nobody. It wasn't just students that weren't there. The other fans weren't there. Well, they were playing Penn State.
West Virginia, Morgantown, Mountaineer Field, Milan Puskar Stadium was rocking. Rocking. If you weren't there, you can't know. I don't know how it sounded on television to you guys, but for me being there in the moment, it was rocking. And that's what we want as a home field advantage. We had it.
You heard what Jake Nikolai said, right?
No, what'd Jake say?
You say that on Facebook. He said, that's the loudest Mountaineer game I've ever been to.
Well, see, I'm spoiled. I was at 93 Miami like you were.
LSU.
We were at LSU. Good Lord.
Louisville triple overtime.
I don't know how loud it was, though, because a lot of people left. I can't really remember that one. But LSU was rocking. Miami 93 was the loudest, craziest, and it was the biggest crowd in the history of Mountaineer Field. But it was awesome because I feel like, again, all the people getting called out, all of the issues we've had, people complaining about fan support and loudness, we showed up. Everybody showed up on Saturday. It was exciting. It is what I love about West Virginia. This is what I love about West Virginia. And this is what I hope we continue to perpetuate. I hope it propels us as we go forward because now, after coming off of Iowa State Hate Week, we are now into Iowa State Love Fest. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, absolutly. Win, baby, win.
Win,
do something, baby.
Because if Iowa State beats Oklahoma State this Saturday, all we have to do is win out. We win out. We're into the Big 12 championship game, the inaugural Big 12 championship game.
This is true, but
we don't want to get. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because one game at a time is my mantra. And it's not just that it's one game at a time, but each game is its own game. You can't look at this game and say, well, if we do this like we did that, then we're not going to win because each game is its own entity. You just have to wait till you get there to see.
One thing I love too is like if you look at our defense, we were missing a lot of people.
Oh,
like we said this earlier. Next man up. Everybody loves to scream. Next man up. And when it really happens, they're crying in the pillow. Look at Florida State right now. Now, granted, it's their quarterback, but still, everybody will say next man up. On our defense, we were missing a lot of people. We're missing Preston, and we're missing Schuler. We're missing Toyas Avery, and them dudes stepped up and played ball. Let me just say, I know Reese Donahue's a starter. I'm going to say, now I heard
Have you seen what Reese Donahue's been doing?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I heard Tony Creedy say it, but before he ever said it, when I was watching the film, watching the game again, Reese Donahue keeps getting the inside position. He keeps beating his man. He keeps getting the advantage.
He's growing up.
Tony Creedy said he's coming on. He's arrived, and that's the truth. Reese Donahue, keep doing it. Keep doing it for the 304, all right?
Ezekiel Rose, He represented
Rose,
too.
man.
He showed he's more than just a punt returner. He showed he's able. He showed he's also able to get to the quarterback. That dude.
Hungry.
That's what I was gonna say. He played like he was hungry and it was time to eat. I again go back to my homeboy, the dude that I love so much. I can't wait to see him as the years go by. Is Kenny Robinson, man. Kenny Robinson balled again. He's just such a good player, especially for a young player.
And he's rocking that number 2, and we all know that number 2 is the best jersey somebody can rock.
Dion at Florida State, Charles Woodson at Michigan. Hakeem Bailey.
Dip. There was another though.
Oh yeah, JMP.
Oh,
you had that ready.
That one time. No, I ain't had it already. It was just sitting by. I swear.
Then you got to think the other thing that was nice is Hakeem Bailey had 10 tackles in the game. So a lot of times you don't want your secondary making that many tackles, but the way we play with the 3-3-5, Hakeem Bailey showed up. He made that and he made that huge breakup for us in that game. Pass breakup, pass defense. I thought
he played well.
I did too.
They played well. Those like Gibson said, those crap pass interference calls. I thought he played them well. The first one, I can see you calling it. The second one was ridiculous. And what they did, they sustained drive, which ate up clock. Yep. We've been off the field on a couple of those. We had a couple of bad breaks, but that brings me up to my next point, and I'm glad you brought it up. I heard a lot of people complaining about Big 12 referee, and by the way, I hate the Big 12 zebras. But in this specific game, come on now. Like, there's going to be bad calls. There's going to be bad calls sometimes. Yeah. I think people are taking it a bit too far to complain. Now, I'm probably saying this because we won.
Well, you are definitely saying it because you won.
Taking it a bit too far. Like, they want to criticize everything. I watched the game. I didn't feel like the zebras were against us. I felt like they were pretty straight up. They made a couple bad calls, but it's human. Like, that's a human element. It's going to happen. I felt like it was pretty straight up.
I think what happens is it's a cumulative effect. People are so sick of it happening every single game that when it happens, it becomes a bigger deal than it really is. So this game, the refs weren't that bad, but it's too late. We've already decided who and what they are, and we hate them. So that's what it is. So I get the frustration because I feel like our fans do that oftentimes. When we get that ball rolling, man, we don't let up on somebody. When we ride on somebody.
I'm sure it's all fan bases too.
Yeah, it's not just us. It's like the new stat out showing Don Nealon in 21 season only beat 7 top 15 teams, I believe. Dana Holgerson in 7 has beaten 5. Rich Rod only beat 5, I think something like that. The stat out shows Dana Holgerson is a much better coach than people are giving him credit for. But there's so many people in our fan base who have decided Dana Holgerson is not a good football coach that it doesn't matter. I mean, they've shown the record since 2015 in the Big 12. Guess what Dana Holgerson's record is in November since 2015 in the Big 12?
I'm not sure.
8-1. The only person better is Oklahoma at 8, or is Bob Stoops in Oklahoma at 8-0. Or maybe 9-0, which basically means we beat everybody but Oklahoma, which is not good enough, but it's better than everyone else. And it shows you maturity and progress, especially later on in the seasons, the adjustments in coaching. That's my favorite thing about Dana Holgerson. The humility to change the way you coach. You go from an air raid system to being willing to have a balanced offense, as we saw last year with the 10-3 season, running the ball equally with passing the ball, and then being able to willingly and humbly hire an offensive coordinator when that's not something he wanted to relinquish control of. I like the progression. I like the development. To me, that's a sign of a really good coach.
Nah, me too. The humility to be able to do something like that, that's big. I don't know how many coaches would do that. I also say, be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Like, there's people who always, the grass is green and we want something better. Then next thing you know, we're back in some old days where these lads aren't getting it done. So it's one of the things, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. Data is
the transition. People underestimate transitions. Very rarely do you have coaches that go let me think of somebody who did this. Who hit home runs? Well, I mean, you look at like the transition for the Green Bay Packers, for example. Very rarely do you go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't happen, okay? It just doesn't happen. And the same thing with coaching staffs. Rarely do you go from a successful long-term coach to another successful long-term coach. It's hard. Usually you have to bridge the gap. We were fortunate with Nealon to Rodriguez, but you got to remember, how many years of garbage did we have to deal with before Rodriguez put together a real potent team that only occurred after his quarterback got hurt and the backup had to come in?
It's true. I also want to say something about K-Ron. I was talking to W Nation a few weeks ago, and I think Skylar's the one who said, he's like, do you feel like these other receivers have to step up so that David Sills isn't making all the plays? And what I said then was, we don't have to change a thing. Naturally, what's going to happen is you're going to start double teaming Sills. And when that happens, other receivers are naturally going to be open. What we saw Saturday, K-Ron was tearing it up. David Sills didn't have a spectacular game. They're giving him so much attention. You know what happens when they give Sills attention?
Everybody else is open.
K-Ron, Jennings, whoever else steps up. K-Ron was balling, and I love the focus. Like every game, I get a little frustrated with our receivers dropping passes. Great receiving core. We dropped too many passes. This game, I felt like we were very disciplined. Caught the ball, played ball. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Focus. I mean, really what you're describing is focus. And I felt like I just can't get over how impressed I am with the fact that the coaches called the players out, because that can go sideways. You know, you call people out, and then people start calling people names, and people start talking in the press, and their family starts talking in on Twitter and making posts on Instagram or Facebook. And instead, what happened for us, even though there are people, anytime you got to play a team with as many players on it as a college football team, somebody's going to be disgruntled. Somebody's not getting enough playing time. Somebody's not getting enough attention from a coach. That's not surprising to me. People talked about the fights in practice last week. Good. Okay? Good. Now, I am a Christian man. I don't believe in hurting people. I'm not trying to act like that. But when you're fighting with your teammates who you care about, it is clear that there's intensity. And that's what you need when you're not being tough, when you're not being focused, when you lost a game because you went out and got your tails whipped because you weren't ready to play. I love that there were fights in practice all week. I love that nobody got hurt from the fights in practice all week. And I love that they showed up and everything that Dana asked for came to fruition. I like that. And that's right. I like that Tony Gibbs is able to say,
fights.
Yeah.
And you love the fact that there were fights because it's a reflection of how they were ready to play on Saturday. And they showed up and they did it, and they were gritty and they were tough. I just keep thinking of Crawford and Wellman and how determined they looked every time they touched the ball.
And McCoy on that 3rd and 17.
Yeah. Absolutely. Which was a great play call. And
then great execution on Kennedy's part. The other thing I was going to say, this is a little different. I think I might be going a little bit different direction where you were going. Tony Gibson said that they shouldn't have had 16 points, which I agree with. And he also said that there are puppies that are turning into dogs, which I loved hearing him say. This defense does what Tony Gibson does every single year. It gets better every week. Another sign of a good coach. Tony Gibson has to know who goes where. He has to know what each player is capable of doing and what position they need to be in. Classic example, Kenny Robinson is a safety when they recruit him, when they bring him in. He trains and practices that way. And then we get into the season and he plays corner and he excels. So what's he playing now? A lot of corner.
Yep.
When Tony Gibson figures out where everybody goes, then the defense goes. And that's why you're seeing puppies turn into dogs. That's why Darius Stills is not redshirted. He's playing. Tony Gibson saw what he needed to see in Darius. Darius is on the field contributing. Lamont McDougal. Tony Gibson had guys who have more time in with the Mountaineers, who've been there longer, who are upperclassmen, or at least higher class than Lamont McDougal is, or as he says on Instagram, Maserati Mont. But who's starting? The true freshman. And making a good case, by the way. I don't know if you've seen the ratings from Pro Football Focus, but Lamont McDougal is making a very good case for freshman All-American. So we got to keep an eye. We got to keep an eye on that because it'd be real nice. Another nice little feather in the cap to get Maserati Mont another accolade for us.
You know what I loved? I saw Ezekiel Rose make a move to the inside. He beat his man. I like seeing our defensive line being able to get that pressure with no blitz. We have to develop that. So his hunger and his thirst to get to the quarterback, he ripped inside. The offensive line play on that play wasn't great, but it doesn't matter. He ripped through and he went, and I love seeing that. And I love the motor. I love the drive. And we're going to need all that because we know what Kansas State likes to do. It's a man's game. When you play Kansas State, it's a man's game.
Grown man's game.
Grown man, yeah. So we're going to need all that.
But after Saturday, I feel like we showed we have some grown men on this team. And I feel like we showed that, Will Grier, too. This is another thing you take for granted. Will Grier had a QBR of 4, I believe, after throwing 4 interceptions against Oklahoma State. it's real easy to get into a funk. It's real easy to get down on yourself or to doubt yourself, and he didn't do that. He showed up. The important thing to note about Will is he hasn't played that much football. I mean, this is what? We're 6-3. This is his 14th game in college football. That's not even a full, well, that would be just a full season, basically. So for him to be able to bounce back from that, Dana talked about that. Dana talked about his bounce back on ESPN and really basically gave him credit for something that a lot of people may have just dismissed. We may have just assumed that Will Grier was going to show up, when instead what we should have been assuming is that maybe people had figured out how to stop him or make him uncomfortable, and he wasn't going to be able to respond, but he did. And that's why he gets to be listed for a Davey O'Brien Award. He's on the watch list, one of 16 quarterbacks. And outside shot, not real good shot of winning that, of course, depending on what happens the rest of the season. But the fact that he's even being mentioned after only 14 games in college football, that's huge. And it's huge for our program. To go with 3 guys who are listed on the Biletnikoff watch list, that's Karan White, David Sills, and Gary Jennings. So we've got 3 guys, including one who leads the nation in touchdown receptions on that list. Hardware in Morgantown is not as abundant as you might think. So the fact that we're getting mentioned for these is huge. And hopefully somebody comes home with something.